Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this lunchtime webinar based around Compucare Clinician. My name's Tom, and over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll be walking you through what's new in Compucare Clinician, highlighting some exciting changes and giving you a brief demo of the new solution. So Compucare Clinician, for those who don't know, is our web-based application that enables clinicians and medical secretaries to view diaries, manage bookings, and access orders and reports both within the hospital and remotely. So joining me today on our Q&A is my colleague Summer. So she's on hand for any questions you may have throughout the webinar. But just before we begin, we have the usual webinar housekeeping to run through. So we are recording this webinar. It will then be uploaded to our YouTube channel. All cameras and mics are to be turned off throughout the webinar. And then finally, as mentioned, we have Summer covering the Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar at all, please use the live Q&A tab, which should look something like that along the Teams bar. So here's what we'll be covering today. First, we'll quickly revisit the existing Clinicians portal for reference. Then we'll look at a basic technical breakdown of the new solution and how it's hosted. From there, I'll then talk about feature parity within Compucare Clinician from the existing Clinicians portal. And then I'll highlight a new key area of Clinician, which is called Journal. I'll then go into the system for a live demo to give you a good look around the new system and its different pages. And then finally, I'll give you a walkthrough of what's next on our future roadmap. So let's start by taking a look back at our existing Clinicians portal. So a lot of you are probably familiar with these screenshots and the functionality on offer here. And while it served a purpose, in order for us to offer more capability from this product, it needs to be fully rewritten in order for us to develop and enhance it and to ensure it follows suit with the advancements made within Compucare and our other web-based systems. So as you can see on our first screenshot of the existing portal, it was designed to match what is now sort of the Microsoft legacy product layout. So we're on the home screen here with the menu icons down the left-hand side and the different options and prompts at the top. And then within the main body of the screen covering it, we have just today's schedule. And then onto this next screenshot, we then have the patient view. So with the timeline and separate icons there, that can then take you through to separate screens for patient attachments, notes, alerts, all in one system there. So when we talk about feature parity, we mean ensuring that as we evolve Compucare Clinician, we're not losing any core functionality. So everything you could do in previous versions, you're still able to do, just faster, smoother, and in a more intuitive interface. So this foundation allows us to focus on building enhancements and adding further key functionality. It also allows us to streamline the whole system, ensuring that workflows through the solution are consistently smooth. So considering it from a medical secretary's point of view, they may want to view patient attachments for referral letters, have a look at the notepad, and then considering, for instance, the clinician's view. At the clinician's viewpoint, we would maybe want to consider viewing orders and test results and also patient demographics as well. We've also got key things like patient alerts, appointments. So both MedSecs and clinicians would need to view their appointments. Obviously, they would need to potentially edit, cancel. And then there's also surgical information, so we can consider key tasks like printing surgical lists and also printing clinic lists as well. So from a technical view now, the Clinicians portal is hosted on Microsoft's Azure cloud platform. So this ensures enterprise level security, stability, and scalability. So we offer the same key guarantees that we do with our hosting of the main Compucare solution. It is important I point out now that this new version of Compucare Clinician requires your Compucare SQL database to be hosted within our Azure infrastructure. So with no single point of failure and over 99.5% uptime guarantee, it means clinicians can reliably access a solution when they need it most. So it's also cost effective, reduces the need for internal IT infrastructure, and supports sustainability by cutting down on energy usage. Plus, with our automatic updates every 3 weeks, you're always working with the latest version, meaning any fixes or improvements are applied consistently, so there's no downtime and no fuss. And for the more technical minded, we have a diagram here highlighting the Azure infrastructure. So within the top cloud, we have our Azure hosting, including the SQL Server, Compucare service, and databases, and the additional web-based products on the left-hand side of that also. So moving down the diagram, all data is encrypted using TLS 1.2, linking the main Compucare solution to the Azure environment, including Compucare Clinician. This also incorporates Azure front door technology that ensures only the correct people are able to access Compucare Clinician. So here's how our example clinician or MedSec would access Compucare Clinician. So they would go through the web address, then signing in, which then can be done remotely. For example, if a clinician or MedSec are traveling and still need to access diaries, they're able to do so with their secure credentials. So for any more information around our Azure hosting, please do reach out to myself or one of my colleagues, and we'll be happy to assist with this. So moving on now, let's dive into the journal. So the journal is a unified area within Compucare Clinician where key elements that relate to a patient's journey are brought together in one area rather than being separated into different screens. So that includes attachments, notes, and correspondence. So they're all easily accessible in one place. There's also a smart preview pane as well, so clinicians and medsecs can view and access information quickly, providing an amalgamation of some of the background admin work behind the patient's journey. So now let's take a look at Compucare Clinician in action. So I'm going to show you how it works in real time, focusing on sort of how a MedSec or a clinician would use it to view diaries, appointments, how they can look at patient details, key details around the new journal feature, and also orders as well. But just before I go through the demo, I will remind you that there is the Q&A section for any questions you may have. So here we are on the web browser. All you've missed me doing is accessing it via the web browser at the top. And we're now on the home screen. So just navigating around this screen here, up at the top right-hand corner, we have my Microsoft credentials where I've signed in. We have a notification bell and then the search option as well. So along the top, you can see the clinician that I'm under here is a Mr. Bill Nicholson. But if, for example, I'm a medical secretary and I have a number of different clinicians that I work with and may potentially need to switch clinician, that can easily be done by selecting the name at the top there and selecting the alternate clinician. Over on the left-hand side, we have the menu bar for the different screens. But what we'll do, we'll focus on the main body of information that's going on here. So the first tile we have in the top left is the next appointment that's due. You can see we have this appointment that's due in at 12:30. Key information, any related orders, the type of appointment and the location. We also have the details, the room, and any information, whether it's a new or follow-up. We have the insurance information. You can see this patient is a self-pay patient. And then also any pre-made appointment notes. So we can see there's notes in there saying following recent blood results. Along the top here, we have some quick prompts. So if we wanted to add a new appointment or even add a new patient, and then there's also a print list option. So within here, we can print clinic lists or surgical lists. So what we'll do, we will set this to print a clinic list for today and press print that, and it works on a fire and forget. And there we go. As you can see, it's prompted at the top there. And we now have the notification on the bell icon. We can see the clinic list has been ran. And if we go in here and select that, we can see it's printed today's clinic list. It's displayed today's clinic list, which we can then print, download. Moving over slightly, we have a condensed view of the calendar, so we can see today's appointments and what's due in, and we can select different dates should we need to. And then scrolling further down, we have the scheduler view. So you can see the blue and the pink availability, which is set within Compucare, and the location of the availability, any appointments, and also whether they are outpatient or surgical bookings. We've also got suspensions added in there as well, so it's clear to see. Within this view as well, we can also look to potentially add new appointments or follow-up appointments. So for instance, if I wanted to go and create a new appointment, I could do it with the add appointment option at the top there, or we can go new appointment. So when selecting new appointment, it obviously gives me an option to prompt for a patient. So we'll just bring up a patient, and then we can add all key information. So referrer, lead case holder, diagnosis, the appointment time, which we selected previously, and the duration. And then the site, there is an option to amend the contact type if it isn't a face-to-face appointment, if it's telephone, for instance. And then finally an option to add a purchaser. So we'll say this one was also a self-pay patient. And then we can also add any pre-appointment notes. Once an appointment's made, we can see it shows the reservation status while the system contacts Compucare to confirm that booking. And momentarily when we go onto the scheduler, we'll see that appointment is confirmed. So moving down the left-hand side, we have our patients option. So this is just a quick prompt for the patient search, so we can access any patients within the system. Obviously, there's a lot of patients in our test system, but that's just for example purposes. And then moving further down, we have our scheduler. So similar to within Compucare, it brings up the single-use scheduler, so we can see the weekly view. There's a number of settings we can do here, so we can edit the timescale. So if you want it in different increments, we can also set the diary start time. So for instance, my clinician is starting at 9 o'clock, but if, for instance, the clinician would have a start time of 7 o'clock, it would then display as 7 o'clock as the first time available. We can also amend the day range. So if you just wanted a daily view, or if you wanted the full week as opposed to the work week, like I have set currently. We also have the option to add a reading pane. So when I go into this, if we wanted to view an appointment, we can access everything in the reading pane like we would within Compucare. So the reading pane on the right-hand side has the key information of the episode of care, all the booking details, and everything we saw from the first tile on the home screen. Moving down again on the left-hand side, we have the My Patient section. So within here, we can see it offers a similar view to Clinicians view. So we have appointments that are due, any waiting, any in progress, or any cancelled. There's filter options. You can see that it's just filtered for today's date, and these are today's patients. We have the location that they're viewed and the contact type as well. So it's nice and clear for the clinician to easily access and view, or the MedSec to view what the clinician has on the day or days upcoming. So within the My Patient section, we're also able to access the patient profile. So if I was to go into this patient here, Mr. Greaves, and you can see this is the patient profile within Compucare Clinician. So we can see the patient's details along the top there, nice quick snapshot of their contact number, address, and date of birth. But if we need more information, we can also click the eye there, and we can see we have the information on the registered GP. And we're also able to edit the patient details as well. So similar to when adding a new patient, all these fields would be prompted, but we can add key information in there should you need to add a patient at all, or should you need to amend the patient. So along from the edit patient, we have our journal. So as we mentioned previously, the journal is an amalgamation of notes, attachments, so they're all viewable in one section. So we can see this patient here. As an example, we have a few notes. So these have some notes that have been created. There's also the ability to view attachments. So as an example, we have an MRI hip image, and as you can see, we have the preview pane there displaying that. And likewise, we have the referral letter as well. So we can see the GP referral letter. So from the patient's attachments within Compucare, that letter then displays as a nice preview pane. It can then be downloaded, printed should we need to, but it's just a quick way of accessing that should a MedSec need to view some documents quickly in there, rather than having to open separate windows. So back on the patient profile, we can see the next appointment information, which we saw previously on the home screen. And then we have some areas around orders. So we'll cover orders in a little bit more detail in just a moment, but we can see there's an area for abnormal results. There's areas for unseen reports as well. So we can see we've got some unseen reports for this patient. There's a clear indication that one's been seen and one hasn't. And there's also an area to add any additional patient notes. So moving on to our orders, we'll go onto the orders tab on the left-hand side here. And we can see it's brought up any orders that are associated to my clinician. So we'll close the reading pane for a second. We can see the service request. If there's more than one, it will highlight there's additional that are to be viewed. And we have a status as to whether or not they've been seen. So if we look at Mr. Desmond Burns here, we have an MRI hip. It's been verified. We can then print said order report should we need to. We will then get the prompt as we did with the clinic list. We then open the notification and we can see the order service report has been ran. If we open that, it then produces the report, and then we can then mark that as seen. You can see that then updates this specific order as being seen. That will then audit that through to Compucare's main system as well. With regards to our orders, if I were to drill into this patient here, we can see we have a few blood counts for example purposes. Now, all the orders results are fully charted. All the forms are transferred through to Compucare Clinician, so you can see everything that's entered through the form result within Compucare have displayed within Clinician. We can see the results, and we can see there are warning bands as well. So we saw the notification on the patient profile for any abnormal results. This would then show through, which I will show you in a second. But one area of Compucare Clinician that it now offers is charted results. So you can see this patient's hemoglobin is charted, so it can easily be referenced with an active live chart. So with that warning showing there as an abnormal result, we can see on the patient's profile, in the latest abnormal results, it then copies through to here. So it's fully accessible and viewable. Within the patient banner as well, we also have our alerts. So these are copied through from Compucare, and these are also going to be set so they can be viewed in relation to who would need to view them. Going back to our home screen, we appreciate that clinicians, even medical secretaries, would potentially need to access this system using a phone or a tablet. So we wanted to ensure that it was fully scalable to be used on a mobile device, for instance. So what I'll do is I will just pop this into our development mode, and you can see we are now looking at this in the view of an iPhone 12 Pro, for example. So you can see it's fully scrollable within the bars there, and fully scrollable. And we can see future appointments coming up. We can also view clinic lists, and we can even add new appointments. Every function that we looked at within the desktop view is able to be done within the mobile view. So you can see when I access the menu bar at the top here, it then brings up my details there. And then also we have our scheduler, patients, and our orders as well. So if I go into the scheduler for the view, you can see that's an appointment that's coming up. We have the scheduler, we can track dates. We can also amend the settings with what we looked at before. Moving down, we have the patient section still, so we can still view all of our patients. We can view patients' details. And then finally, orders as well. We can still go through our orders screen as previously, but still on a mobile device. And it's also fully transferable should they instead want to be using a tablet, for instance. So we'll look at an iPad. So fully scalable, fully adaptable to any sort of device that it's being accessed on. So as you can see, the new solution offers a much slicker, streamlined approach to sort of how medsecs and clinicians access their diaries, bookings, and any patient information they may need to view. So what's next? So the roadmap is already in motion. We're currently gathering feedback on the solution and broader clinician workflows. So here's a quick snapshot of the timeline. So in Q3 of this year, so after going live, we're gathering feedback from clinicians. Q4, we're looking at Clinicians View remastered. So we're looking at remastering the existing Clinicians View within Compucare. And then Q1 of 2026 will be phase 2. So there's feedback and enhancement planning. So this involves any feedback that's provided. So we're committed to ensuring that the clinician experience drives the development. So your input genuinely shapes this platform. So as part of the development and enhancement of Compucare Clinician, we'll also be remastering Clinicians View within the main Compucare system. So you're probably familiar with this screenshot from the Clinicians View within Compucare. But those of you who aren't familiar with this, Clinicians View is available as a separate bolt-on module within the main Compucare system. So just scanning through the screenshot here, we have our open appointment with the patient details at the top, the associated form to that appointment on show in the main body on the left-hand side. And over on the right-hand side, we can see we have the warnings that have presented based on the information entered onto the form, in this case, a BMI warning. And finally, below that on the right, we have our to-do prompts. So where you can see we have sort of review previous order results and also add anything necessary, including order requests, prescriptions, and any additional attachment. When these are clicked, they're then open within a separate window, which can sometimes provide slightly disjointed process. Finally, on the existing Clinicians View, it gives clinicians the options to add outcomes to appointments. So here on this example, you can see an inpatient booking is required, and this will then automatically add this patient to the relevant waiting list to save them entering another screen and another app to add the patient. So as with the clinicians portal, we considered the features required and how the system needed to be more intuitive in line with other enhancements across the Compucare suite. So considering these features, we wanted to create a new solution that considers all of the following. So this would then give clinicians the ability to complete appointments within Clinicians View as seamlessly and smoothly as possible. To highlight some of the key areas, we have the ability to record clinical notes and also access previous assessment forms and previous clinical notes. Any follow-up orders that may be required, like radiology, for example, could be managed through this alongside any medication or prescriptions. We mentioned and looked at journal earlier, and by adding this feature to the new Clinicians View, it then shows any attachments and notes that are associated. And finally, we wanted to add the ability to complete appointments and add the relevant outcome, which we realise is such a key part of the process for clinicians. So the following screenshot is how the new Clinicians View would be viewed on a tablet, for example. So rather than having separate screens, we wanted everything easily accessible to the clinician. So as you can see, with the form, we have the menu bar on the left-hand side, which has the title area which can be skipped to. So moving through, you can see all the key information on display when scrolled through. So we had our form results, allergies, and the patient's orders. You can also see the ability to view order results and add any follow-up orders. And then finally, at the bottom, we have the patient journal. That is all we have time for today. However, to stay updated on the latest from Compucare Clinician or anything Compucare at all. If there's anything you would like to discuss, please reach out on the contact below. We also have our YouTube, LinkedIn, and our website for any more information around this or anything Compucare at all related. So thank you very much for watching. What I'll do now is I will leave the webinar live just for a couple more minutes as we reach 30:30, just to give everyone the chance to add any more questions to the Q&A section you may have. As mentioned, this will then be later uploaded to YouTube should you want to review it at all, or if you've missed any part of it. But other than that, I would just say it's a big thank you from myself, and I hope this lunchtime webinar has been useful. Goodbye.